أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا والشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. The topic for tonight is about loyalty and wafa. Why is this so important? One of the main reasons is because loyalty is something that demonstrates that trust exists. When someone is loyal to their promise or loyal to their word, loyal to supporting their imam, loyal in whatever that they're doing, this becomes a way that this person shows that they are worthy of trust. We have a lot of examples of that in Karbala. The loyalty of the Imam's companions, the loyalty of his family, even the loyalty of Imam Hussein himself to Islam, to the cause of Islam, where at every time he never changed and went back on his pledge or on his loyalty. Just to bring into perspective this, how important or what role loyalty plays, let's look at a couple of hadith. One from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he mentions al-Islamu uryan, that Islam is naked, falabasuhu al-haya, and this haya, the shame, is its clothing. Wazinatuhu, what is the beauty and adornment of Islam? It says it's wafa, it's loyalty. And the hadith goes on, but when you look at what this is talking about, it's showing us that despite the fact that there may be, everything is not black and white, especially when we come to applying the laws. Sometimes people, they just look at something, it's haram, it's halal. But there's sometimes a lot more to it than that. There's some gray areas. There's some things that require a little bit more than just simply yes or no. This kind of falls into that category sometimes. When we're talking about where this applies or how to apply this wafa, which I will explain. There are instances where sometimes loyalty may be in an area where there's someone who's that you have to be loyal to. Should you be loyal to them if they're against Islam? Should you be loyal to your agreements if they are with someone who is against Islam? There are some scenarios that we want to look at when we talk about loyalty, just to cover all the aspects. We know that Allah is loyal to His word, that if He makes a promise, that we know that it's 100% that it's true. For us, maybe when we make a promise, it doesn't have that same kind of weight. When Allah says that there's good deeds, and when you do those good deeds, there's reward for them, there's no doubt about that. You can trust that Allah is loyal to His word. Or when He says there's these bad deeds and there's punishment for that, you can trust that Allah is loyal to what He's saying. There's paradise, there's hellfire, there's afterlife. It says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُخْلِفُ الْمِيعَادِ, that Allah does not go back on His promises. If He vowed to do something, then He's loyal to that. It's a lesson for us in how we apply loyalty in our life. For something very simple, we may or may not keep our word. If we say that we're going to meet with someone at a certain time, we may come late. We don't think that this is a sign of loyalty, or that this expresses that I am a person that keeps his word, or that this creates a trust. If we were to remove this loyalty and say that Allah gave his word, but we can't say 100% sure that it's true, what would that happen? What would happen to humanity? Allah said there's paradise, but we can't trust that there really is. Or Allah said that there's reward and punishment, but no, you can't trust that. Then there would be complete chaos. Why would someone go and do something good if they don't have the faith and trust in Allah that He will give them the reward? Like some people who don't have a belief in the afterlife. That they think that, well, when we die, that's it's all finished. There is no further purpose, there's no reward, there's no punishment. So we see how critical this loyalty and this keeping of promise is. Because if for just even a second we fathom that Allah would not, a'udhu billah, keep His promise, then people would lose their motive to do good. People would lose their motive to stay on the right of things. And people would cheat other people more, steal from other people more, the mutaffifin, things like that. So it's necessary that when we see that Allah is saying He doesn't go back on His word or promise, this is an example for us that when we give our word or promise that we have to do exactly the same. I always joke about how for Muslims we don't do things on time. When we say we're going to start at something on time, it just means somewhere around that time in the next couple of hours or so we will do something. That our kind of wafa, or our kind of loyalty or promise of our words, it's lost its weight. It's lost its credibility. If you tell someone to come to your house at 8 o'clock, they will definitely show up at 8:30. Because they know that they're operating on MST, Muslim Standard Time. But this is what happens over the course of time. When this loyalty and trust it becomes less and less, then people don't feel the need to respond in that same way. But you take someone who, whenever they say something, you know 100% they're going to do it. That person gains your trust. You rely on him. You go to him. You look for that person when you need something done. Someone asked Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, لما سئل عن جميع شرائع الدين, they asked him about all of the laws of the religion. They said, can you just sum all of the laws of religion up in just a single sentence for us? Obviously, we have so many things when we're talking about the legislation and the laws, from, taqleed, taharat, saum, fasting and hajj and everything, the doubts and prayer, every single aspect, marriage, nikah. There's so much, so many things to cover. Every aspect of our lives, literally. They asked him to sum up all of the laws, and he mentioned 3 things. He said, number 1, qawlul haqq, tell the truth. Number 2, al-hukmu bil-adl, judge fairly. And number 3, al-wafa'u bil-ahd, be loyal to your covenants, to your promises. These 3 simple things, he summed up all of religion. And you can go into more detail and see how everything in some kind of way reflects one of these categories, but that's a little bit different discussion. Now we know that, as I mentioned, Imam Hussein, we can see examples in Karbala where people were loyal to him completely till the very end. Where his word, even to the people of Kufa, he was loyal till the very end. Despite knowing that they had shaky iman, or that they weren't going to be 100% supportive, he was loyal to his word that he gave to the very end. There's this tradition that talks about how during the time of Imam Mahdi, there will be people who, I believe you've heard the hadith, who say their claim is that we are the family, the followers of the Imam, but they will be people who turn against him. And then it says that there will be people who are not even monotheists, they're worshipping the sun. They're not monotheists. It says they will join in the ranks of Imam Mahdi and become his followers and companions. Now, what this is telling us, every single one of us who recites the dua, Allahumma kulli waliyik, every single one of us who wants to duhur, who we want to hasten the coming of the Imam, that our verbal loyalty is not enough. Because it's saying these people, they will have verbal loyalty. They will say, we are with the Imam 100%. And we can't imagine someone who says that to turn and be on the other side and to oppose the Imam. But it's not so far-fetched. We saw it in Karbala. History will repeat itself. So loyalty, the point is not just verbal. Loyalty requires some action and some level of commitment. It says in Surah A'raf, verse 102, وَمَا وَجَدْنَا لَأَكْثَرِهِمْ مِنْ أَهْدٍ. We found that most of them were not loyal to their covenant. They were not loyal to what they promised. وَإِنْ وَجَدْنَا أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَفَاسِقِينَ. Most of them were on the complete opposite. Now it does talk about in the tafsir of this verse that this may be referring to the original ahd and covenant, where it mentions that in the alam al-dhar, or the world of pre-existence, before Allah created the world, that He created the souls and tested them. And it mentions that every soul took this oath to be loyal only to praise Allah, only to do good. Obviously, when the soul was created in the fashion that became attached to this physical body in this physical world, did some different things. Some people, some of those who initially, everyone who made that promise, obviously we can see some are not keeping that promise and that vow. It also mentions that this could be a reference to most of them did not keep their vow or promise, that this could be a reference to all of the prophets who came and they would try to get their people to accept the truth, to have a covenant and pledge with this prophet. Yet so many of them would do that and they would go back on what they promised. Yes, this prophet came, he told them to follow the truth, don't worship idols, or to do good deeds and these different things. So many times the people would accept, but then they would turn back and they would go back to doing what they wanted to do. So it's saying that this may be a reference to that as well. I mentioned sometimes for some of the prophets, there will be only a single family amongst their whole tribe. A single family that would keep their covenant. A single family would be loyal to what they promised the Prophet, and the majority would be going astray. Obviously, this is also a dars and lesson in not following blindly what the majority of everyone else is doing. Where, as we see time and time again in history, the majority are not always right. The majority were 30,000 troops. The majority in the world today are not Muslim, or not even followers of the Ahlul Bayt for that matter. We don't go into blindly following what the majority do. Usually those on truth are the minority. Like it mentions, maybe a single family amongst a whole nation of people, one family would be the ones who are on the truth. And it's easy when you're the minority to say, well, maybe we're not on the truth because everyone around us is doing something different. Sometimes shaitan uses that as an opportunity to create doubt, to shake up your iman. But actually, look at it from the other perspective, that throughout history, traditionally, those on the right were fewer people. And it's something good to know that you're on, whether you're, the numbers or not would matter. If there's a handful of people, if we're on the right, it doesn't matter how many people are there. We want to be with those people who are on haqq. Why is keeping ahd and promises so critical? Sometimes it helps to understand when you look at something from the complete opposite perspective. Just like we said, if Allah was not loyal to His promise, what would happen? How chaotic that would be. We see how people, on the other end of being someone who's loyal, someone who goes and turns back, that person is essentially a munafiq. That person is a hypocrite. He says, I promise to be here with you, I promise to support, but then he turns back and does not support. Yeah, we see so many examples of that are mentioned in the Quran, and the people who are turning back and not standing on the right side. So on one hand, you had people in Karbala who, these people, they said that we are Muslim. We take that vow of accepting Islam, taslim, that we're literally submitting to whatever is the will of Allah. Yet, we turn back and we're standing in face of Abu Abdullah. So here you have what we can see, the azamat and the magnificence of Imam Hussein, and the zillat on the other side of this munafiq in Yazid, in Sham, in Umar ibn Sa'd. People who, because of their dishonesty and inability to remain loyal to what was true, they became written in history as the most cursed people. They mentions that there will be people in hellfire who, if shaitan is here, it will be lower than him even. There are some people. Who knows, perhaps these are those group of people. In Surah Ahzab, it mentions, وَلَقَدْ كَانُوا أَحَدُ اللَّهَ مِنْ قَبْلِ, that those who had taken their covenant with Allah from before, لَا يُوَلُّونَ الْأَدْبَارِ وَكَانُوا أَحْدُ اللَّهِ مَسْئُولًا, that even though they would turn their backs against this ahd and this pledge, it says that is still accountable. Sometimes we make a promise, yeah, sure brother, I'll take care of that for you. Sure, I will do that. You can count on me. But we don't take it seriously. But Allah says, these pledges, that promise, He says, mas'ula, that it's accountable. Just because I didn't really mean it when I said that I was going to volunteer or help or do something, it doesn't make it less important. It's just as important. It has just as much weight, and I'm held accountable for that. If I go against my word, if I break my promise. In the tafsir, it says that this will also be referring to a couple of different battles, or one of these tribes who they made promises and then they wanted to go back on their promises. But the point is that even if it's referring to those instances, it applies to every single time that you give your word. A man only has his word, essentially. That's what they say. A man is his word. When his word doesn't have any value, then he loses his muruvat, he loses his dignity, he loses what it stands for. Because it means that he loses in him what has been lost: trust. The only thing we have is our word. So many people, they went alongside with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. In their mind, from Medina to Mecca and onward, in their mind they were thinking, all of those people want Imam Hussein. They promised that we're going to support you, come be our leader. We believe that you're on the right, you're on the haq. He said Imam Hussein is going to walk into Iraq and he's going to become the ruler and the leader of all the Muslimin. They said, since this is what's going to happen, we want to be on the bandwagon. We want to be right behind him so that we can say that we were with Imam Hussein when he marched into Iraq. But when they saw that maybe things were not going to be that easy, it mentions about people with ulterior motives that they slowly started to dwindle. They didn't make it that far. They didn't stay alongside all the way with those few companions that remained with Imam Hussein. Much greater numbers started out traveling alongside him. They became less and less. Oh, there may be shahadat involved? No, thank you. I'm going to go back. So you find many people who did not remain with him all the way. So they were not loyal. They were not there for the right reasons. Now sometimes people, they do something, but not for the right reason. I'm going with Imam Hussein, but their intention wasn't, I'm loyal to Imam Hussein and what he represents as true leadership, what he represents in pure Islam. They were not there for those reasons. They were there because Imam Hussein was going to be victorious, so this was an easy way for me to say that I was with him as one of his companions. I read somewhere that it said about people not doing things for the right reasons, that people, they buy things that they don't need with money that they don't have to impress people that they don't even like. That's so true. All this because their motive is wrong. They're doing that for the wrong reasons. I say, well, let me buy this kind of furniture instead of this one, and let me put it on my credit card and max that out. But I want to impress some people who I don't really want them to come to my house, but in case they come, at least I have something nice to show for them. When someone is loyal for the right reasons, then they become someone who's completely trustworthy. And because of that trust, you give them, you're willing to give them responsibilities that reflect how much you trust them. Malik Ashtar is a perfect example for this. He was loyal to the Imam of his time. He was a lion and fierce on the battlefield. Yet he was so pious at the same time. When it mentions that when he was walking through the bazaar, through the souk, that someone threw something at him. Maybe because they didn't know who he was dressed simple, like a normal person. They pelted a rock at him. And he didn't say anything, ignore them, he continued on his path. The other person who's the neighboring store or person selling things, he turns to him, he says, do you have any idea who this is? This is Malik Ashtar. Do you know that this is a fierce general of Imam Ali? He starts to probably shake in his pants and think that I made a big mistake. So he goes to find Malik Ashtar. Where was Malik Ashtar? He finds him in the masjid. He says, I came to apologize, I didn't know who you were. Malik Ashtar tells him, the only reason that I came to the masjid was to make dua for you. How often when someone disrespects us, do we pray for them, that Allah guide them, that Allah help them? Instead, we want vengeance on them for their disrespect to us. But he was loyal to the Imam, and what happened? The Imam felt that you're worthy of being the governor and ruler of this very important region in Misr. So when he appoints him as the governor of Egypt, and you can see the evidence in the letter that's in Nahj al-Balagha, in most it's letter 53. You can look in that and see how much he is relying and trusting in Malik Ashtar. That he's saying that I have complete faith in you. That faith was created from the loyalty that Malik Ashtar always showed to Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali also said that do not depend on the friendship of someone who does not fulfill their promises. That's not a person who's going to be a reliable friend. In your time of need, you're not going to be able to trust that they'll be there for you. He says, don't depend on them. You want to know them as an acquaintance, that's fine, but when you need something done, that's not the person that you're going to call on. And in this same letter, he tells Malik Ashtar about the importance of keeping your word. He says, وَإِنْ أَقَدْتَ بَيْنِكَ وَبَيْنَ عَدُوِّكَ. Now the reason why this is particularly important is because Malik Ashtar Imam Ali alayhi salam is talking about that if you come to an agreement or you make a promise to your enemy, he says if you say that you're going to grant him life or you're going to do something regarding his property is safe, or your life is safe, or whatever promise it is that you make, he says stand by it and be loyal. He says وَاجْعَلْ نَفْسَكَ جُنَّةً. Use your body as a shield, use yourself as a shield to protect your word. The same way you go to battle and you put the shield up to protect your body, make that shield yourself and protect your word that you gave to your enemy. SubhanAllah, the integrity of Imam Ali and of his companions. That even he's explaining to him that this person who is your enemy has this right. That if you give him this promise, you have to respect that. And he goes on to continue and says that despite all of the things in the world that all of people have disagreements about, all of the many different things that we have various opinion about, he says every single person agrees on al-wafa'u bil-uhud, on being loyal to your covenant. Whatever promise you made, keeping your word. Every single person, good, bad, evil, everyone understands that. There's no exceptions about understanding that if someone makes a promise, that they should, in fact, keep their word. Now, we can see this example with Muawiyah and the way that he did not keep his word with the peace treaty with Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And in fact, he went completely against that. And one of the things was that he could not select anyone after himself. And he went completely against what he had vowed and what he had promised. And he wasn't loyal, making him a hypocrite. Yet, we see that the Imam was loyal to that peace treaty that he had with that person who is being cursed. That person, even though they were a very lowly, despicable human being, that what he promised, even with his enemy, he kept his part of the bargain, his part of the promise. And betrayal is one of the things that destroys loyalty. It says, afatul wafa. Betrayal is an afat. It's something that destroys the loyalty and trust that can exist between people. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam he explains that there's three things that there's no excuse for a person not to observe them. So number one, ada'ul amana ila al-barr wal-fajr. To restore someone's amana, the trust given to you, for that person who's good or the person who's bad. He said there's no excuse. Someone entrusted you with something. This is a way that you show that you are worthy. Even if this person was not the best person, if they said, please hold this, and you take on that responsibility, whether they're a good or bad person, you still have no excuse in not fulfilling that trust. And actually, one of the things that it mentions is very interesting when it talks about seeking a spouse or in marriage. One of the main things that you should look for, or a person should look for, are those qualities that people have when dealing with other people. Sometimes people, they just look at, well, this person, sometimes they look at just the material things, which is obviously a problem. But even when they look at the spiritual side, sometimes they look at some spiritual aspects which don't necessarily mean that this person is sincere in them. They looked at how much they prayed, how much they came to majalis. Maybe they weren't coming for the right reasons. We don't know what their niyat is. But one of the things that's just difficult to hide, and the niyat becomes more obvious, is the things that have to do with other people. So if someone gives an amanat and a trust, or they're holding money for someone, and they give this back, there's very clear that it shows them that they are at least respecting and observing these rights of other people. This is someone who has this marriage material quality. Or when they give their word or their promise that they're loyal, they keep this promise that they have. These are the things that it says to look for. Maybe somebody, they look for someone, they say that they make a lot of namaz, mashallah. They're always in the masjid. Inshallah, their niyat is khair and good. But you don't know what's in their niyat. Maybe they were looking for that praise that you just said, mashallah, they make a lot of namaz. But that person who is entrusted with something, and he gives this back, this is a complete illustration and example of what iman is. Why was the Prophet known amongst people as being Ameen? This is the reason. He was loyal to his word. It made him in such a position amongst all of the people, good or bad, that when he says something, they were all willing to listen to what he has to say. Because they never saw anything bad from him. So the Imam says that these three things, there's no excuse for him giving the trust back, whether the person is good or bad. Al-wafa'ul bil-ahd bil-birr wal-fajr. Keeping your vow to a person, whether they're a good person or a bad person. I remember one person, they said, should we keep our word and we sign this agreement with this credit card company? Should I keep my word and pay them now? Because, this is such a bad company and, I don't think that they're doing good things and they're doing so much zulm. When you signed up for that, you weren't thinking about those things. So now you have a duty still to this person, whether they're good or bad. If this is what you owe, then that's what you owe. Paying your debts is one of the things that illustrates again and shows that person's level of iman. And it says finally, وَبِرُّ الْوَالِدَيْنِ بِرَّيْنِ كَانَ أَوْ فَاجِرَيْنِ. That goodness to parents, whether they be good parents or bad parents. He says there's no matter in this scenario. That people should be kind to their parents, whether they were good people and honest people, or maybe they were bad people. That kindness still doesn't get removed. So these are some things that the Imam mentions. These are signs, and there's no excuse in these type of things. But we're talking about loyalty. Now coming back to the Imam of our time, I want to mention this is important in closing. That because we want to apply and take the lessons from Karbala, we want to see how they apply to us right now. As we're talking about how we're calling on the Imam, we said that our verbal calling on Imam Mahdi is not enough. We have to be committed in our actions and true supporters of the Imam. So there's a way that this has to happen. If I want to be committed to the preparation of the Imam, then this has to happen in some levels. Obviously I have to prepare, starting first and foremost with myself. I can't say I'm going to prepare for the dhuhr, but I'm going to fix everything in the community, but I still have problems. I still have sickness in my heart or diseases of the heart that I haven't fixed. So I have to first start with myself and make sure that I understand that I can't have these type of afat, things that destroy our heart. I can't be jealous. I can't be always angry. I can't be discontent. I have to fix myself. Then my family. And then I move on to the community. The community obviously is in many levels. I mean, the local community, the national community, even the global community. These are all levels which we eventually have to be working on in the preparation of the dhuhr. But again, it starts with our own preparation of ourselves and fixing our own iman. The Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he has a hadith, he says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ وَضَعَ الْإِيمَانَ عَلَى سَبْعَةِ أَسْهُمٍ. That Allah made iman into 7 different parts. He says, Al-birru was-sidq. One part of iman is goodness. One part of iman is sidq, is honesty. Wal-yaqeen. One part of iman is conviction. Wal-ridha. One part of iman is contentment. Wal-wafa. One part of iman is loyalty. Wal-ilm wal-hilm. Clemency and knowledge, these all together constitute a person who has iman. Now, when I was looking at this idea and concept of keeping our promises and ahd, and especially how we want to look at how this relates to our time, one of the du'as, dua ahd itself, it really puts this into perspective. This is one of the du'as that has been mentioned that whoever recites this du'a will be one of the companions of Imam Mahdi, inshallah. That whosoever recites this for 40 days in the morning, other places mentions that after adhan time and before sunrise. Whoever recites this on this regular basis for 40 days, that person will be one of the Imam's companions. This is a pledge. This prayer is a supplication, and it's a vow of loyalty to the Imam. And this person is being rewarded by becoming one of the companions of the Imam. I want to read from two parts from that dua, which illustrate this, how this loyalty is, and how this person who's reciting this dua, who's saying that I'm loyal to the Imam, this perspective. He says, Allahumma inni ujaddidu lahu fi sabihati yawmi hadha wa ma ishtu min ayyami ahdan wa aqdan wa bay'atan lahu fi unuqi la ahulu anha wa la azulu abada. That Allah, the same way I'm renewing my vow on this day, that even though I am loyal to Imam Mahdi, I'm renewing my vow and my loyalty to him again in this morning, as it's been supposed to be recited in the morning. And he says, and for every day after this of my life, I'm renewing my vow, ahdan, my pledge, wa aqdan, and my agreement, wa bay'atan, and my allegiance to him, that this is upon me. La ahulu anha, I will never turn back from my support of the Imam. Wa la azulu abada, until the end I'm completely 100% loyal to the Imam. This is the words of those people who were companions of Imam Hussein in Karbala. And they want to be till the end with him. They're renewing their vow every step of the way towards Karbala, towards Shahadat. They were renewing their vow that we're in it for the long haul. We're 100% in it to support you. And so, as I mentioned, that even in this dua, if someone died before the time of the dhuhr, before the time of the appearance of the Imam, Allahumma in hala bayni wa baynahul maut, if before my time and the time of Imam Mahdi death comes, alladhi ja'altahu ala ibadika hatman maghdiya, the way that you have promised all of your servants that death will come, kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut, that every soul is going to taste death. And if that happens for me before the time of my Imam, that it mentions that the person who recites this dua, that they will be revived, and in raj'at, they will return out of the grave, and they will still be alongside Imam Mahdi. Their loyalty is so much that even if they leave this world, they will come back to become companions of Imam Mahdi. فَأَخْرِجْنِي مِنْ قَبْرِي, so take me out of my grave, mu'taziran, while I'm awakened, kafani shahiran, while my kafan is still on my body, sayfi mujarradan, while my sword is unsheathed, qanati mulabbiyan, while I'm saying labbaik ya Mahdi, labbaik ya Mahdi. I'm calling out to the Imam of my time, saying, I'm ready, I'm here, I am at your service. This is loyalty to the Imam of the time. Salawat. One of the personalities that you can see their loyalty in the Battle of Karbala, and not just there, but their loyalty to the Ahlul Bayt, was Jawn, the freed slave of Abu Dhar Ghaffari. Now, when Jawn was given to Abu Dhar Ghaffari by Imam Ali, after he was freed, one of the things about the Imams was that they would go to extra extreme to bring people under their care, and to bring people as their servants or slaves, or sometimes slave has a derogatory kind of connotation, but they would serve under this Imam, and they would eventually leave in such a way that so many would be free and want to be still serving their Imam. This is the example of Jawn, and it's actually, it says so much about the Ahlul Bayt and the way that they would treat other people. As the people who were servants or slaves, they didn't stay at a different place, they stayed with the Imam. They didn't eat in a different place, they ate in the same place with the Imam. And this was something that they broke the customs which were of Jahiliyyat in the past that sometimes people they had. Imam Reza, once he invited people to come over his house, alayhi salam, and the table was set, or the sufra was put down, and the food was served. And these were some of the people who were nobles and high people in the community, and they said, how come you invited your servants to come and sit with you? And the Imam got very upset. He said, there's no difference. What makes us better is only our taqwa. So this was the treatment of these captures that made someone like Joan become one of the muhibbeen of the Ahl al-Bayt. That even after being free, he was loyal to Imam Ali and he served him. And after the passing away and martyrdom of Imam Ali, he was loyal to Imam Hassan and he served him. And he's free. He can go wherever he wants. But he says, I want to serve the Ahl al-Bayt only. And after Imam Hassan, he was loyal to Imam Hussein and he served him until he became shaheed in the battlefield of Karbala. His loyalty was existent for generation after generation. He remained loyal to the Ahl al-Bayt and loyal to their cause. And sometimes it makes us wonder, someone like Joan was free and he chose to tie himself only to the Ahl al-Bayt, to serve them and to become shaheed for Imam Hussein. Yet we ourselves, we are slaves to so many other things. We are slaves to this and slaves to that. And we're tied to so many material things. Yet look at a person who was a slave, and in his freedom, he only wanted to serve Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When he goes to Imam Hussein, he says, Ya Abu Abdullah, let me go and fight. Give me permission and id to go and become shaheed. And the Imam says, you don't have to go and become shaheed. You've already served us generation after generation. You can go and be free. And he says that that's not what I want. I don't want to go somewhere and die free. I want to die with dignity. I want my blood mixed with your blood, Abu Abdullah. That also will make me happy. And he goes to the battlefield. He gets permission from Imam Hussein. And he goes there and he fights like a lion and he achieves the level of shahadat. It says that this person, sometimes people, they used to say, Joan, he smells bad. There's a bad smell of him. And it mentions that 10 days later when they came back to Karbala, that from the area where Joan was, Imam Hussein raised his hands and he made dua that Allah make him with us and make him raised and mahshur with the righteous leaders, with the Ahl al-Bayt. And it says from that area where Joan was martyred, a beautiful smell and Rayhan was coming up. This is the blessing of being loyal to the Ahl al-Bayt. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayka ya madloom bil Karbala. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولجعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين.
Say, पर ये ज़माना नहीं अच्छा, प्यास अच्छी है मगर